A generation of war god was framed by the emperor. Not only his cultivation was abolished, but he was also stripped of his bones and bloodline, becoming a useless person, and was exiled to the border to face humiliation and oppression. Moved by the careful care of the newlywed wife, I accidentally entered the tomb of the powerful gods and demons in the heavens and realms, and practiced the eternal devotion technique. Supreme of all worlds, rise against the heavens. Chapter 1. The Great Qin Dynasty, the god of war fallen to the mortal world. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 001. The Great Qin Dynasty, god of war fallen to the mortal world. Zhang Ruochen, I value you so much and appoint you as the first god of war. I didn't expect you to be so bold as to sleep all 6 princesses of my king. Now, I declare. I will depose the title of Zhang Ruochen, the first god of war, and exile him to the bitter cold land of Hanlongzu. He will never be hired. Hanlong Prefecture, Black Cloud City. No. This is a false accusation. I, Zhang Ruochen, disagree. In an ordinary courtyard, a sudden roar of unwillingness rang out. On a wooden bed in the courtyard, a young man in white clothes with a pale face, about 18 or 19 years old, suddenly opened his eyes, revealing deep hatred and unwillingness. The young man in white was the first war god of the Great Qin Dynasty, Zhang Ruochen. At the age of 12, he joined the army. At the age of 15, with 3,000 iron cavalry, he defeated 100,000 elite soldiers of the Dream Dynasty, beheaded 1,000,000, and captured no prisoners. He became famous throughout the world and was granted the title of Marquis of 10,000 Houses. At the age of 16, with a total of 50,000 soldiers, he swept over millions of monsters causing chaos in the northern wilderness and was awarded the title of King alongside. At the age of 19, he commanded 300,000 soldiers, quelled the turmoil of the 8 dynasties, killed millions of enemies, and expanded the territory of the Great Qin by nearly 10 times. He became a god in one battle and was awarded the title of the first god of war. It is the Dinghai god needle of the Great Qin Dynasty and the first war god of the 8 wildernesses, which is awe-inspiring, Zhang Ruochen. But all this glory turned into nothing 5 days ago. 5 days ago, Zhang Ruochen quelled the turmoil of the 8 dynasties and triumphantly returned to the court, but it was not the applause of flowers that greeted him, but an extremely terrifying conspiracy. At the celebration banquet, Emperor Qin Tianxi of the Great Qin Dynasty collaborated with Princess Qin Qingchan to design and intoxicate Zhang Ruochen. Afterwards, Qin Qingchan quietly took Zhang Ruochen away and entered his chamber. However, as the two of them were dressed in disheveled clothes and were about to go off guard, Qin Qingchan's scream directly attracted Qin Tianxi and various civil and military officials. In front of everyone's eyes, even if Zhang Ruochen quickly regained consciousness, he remained speechless and was directly charged with being a frivolous princess, a heinous crime. Not only that, but also, Qin Tianxi also dismissed all the achievements of Zhang Ruochen, deposed his entire cultivation, demoted him to a commoner, and never hired him. What made Zhang Ruochen hate the most was a passage from Qin Tianxi's father and daughter in the prison. Qin Chan, Sanyan ancient sect will make an exception to select one person as their disciple in our Great Qin Dynasty 6 months later. Now that Zhang Ruochen, the biggest obstacle, has been eliminated, Father Emperor has forcibly integrated his Dao Dragon Bone and Jiuyo blood into your body. Next, with these 2 precious treasures and the massive cultivation resources given to you by your father, you will join the Sanyan ancient sect in 6 months' time. It's none other than you. In the prison, Qin Tianxi smiled and looked at his beloved daughter Qin Qingchan beside him. Thank you, father. Zhang Ruochen, a person from a humble background, dares to block me from entering the path of the Sanyan ancient clan. He deserves to die 1,000 times. Qin Qingchan lifted her head and gave a sweet smile to Qin Tianxi, then turned her head to look at Zhang Ruochen, with a hint of mockery in her eyes. Father, Qin Chan has heard that a woman named Murong Shui from the Murong family in Hanlong Prefecture has contracted a strange disease with an extremely ugly appearance. The ancestors of the Murong family have announced to the public that as long as anyone is willing to enter the Murong family and marry Murong Shui, they will take out the heavenly phoenix crystal as their dowry. The Tianfeng crystal is extremely beneficial for my cultivation. Now that Zhang Ruochen has become a useless person, why don't we just waste it and exchange it for a Tianfeng crystal? With the help of Tianfeng crystal, combined with the Dao dragon bone and Jiuyo blood vessel in my body, Qin Chan has full confidence in cultivating to the heavenly destiny realm before enrolling in the Zhanyan ancient sect. Sweep away all competitors and become a disciple of the Zhanyan ancient sect. Cluck. After Qin Chan finished speaking, she couldn't help but giggle. Her smile looked so beautiful and pure. However, her smile in Zhang Ruochen's eyes was even more venomous than the most venomous snake in the world. Not bad, not bad. Qin Chan has considered everything carefully. Since this useless person is still useful, Father Emperor will spare his dog's life for now and squeeze out his last bit of value. In this way, it is not in vain that Father Emperor has trained him for so long. Upon hearing this, Qin Tianxi immediately burst into admiration and laughter at Qin Chan, with a look of relief in his eyes. Next, Qin Tianxi and his daughter looked at each other with a smile, and finally gave Zhang Ruochen a cold glance. They held hands and turned around straight away. From beginning to end, they looked at Zhang Ruochen with no mercy in their eyes, only endless coldness and ruthlessness. Qin Tianxi. Qin Chan. You dog father and daughter, wait for me. If this revenge is not avenged, I, Zhang Ruochen, swear not to be human. Remembering what Qin Tianxi and his daughter had done to him, Zhang Ruochen couldn't help but clench his hands, his eyes bursting with towering hatred. If it weren't for personal experience, he wouldn't have believed that a person could be so vicious. The next moment. Squeak. As the wooden door opened, a tall woman wearing a veil and purple clothes, unable to see her face clearly, cautiously carried a medicine bowl and walked in. Husband, are you awake? Seeing Zhang Ruochen sober up, a hint of surprise flashed in the eyes of the woman in purple. Her voice sounded exceptionally gentle, like a spring breeze, making people very comfortable. Husband. Upon hearing these words, Zhang Ruochen was momentarily taken aback, and then remembered what Qin Tianxi had said to his father and daughter, feeling relieved in his heart. It seems that those vicious dog fathers and daughters have really wasted me, squeezing out the last bit of value. Zhang Ruochen thought about it, and a hint of hatred flashed in his eyes. Husband, it's time we took the medicine. The woman in purple walked up to Zhang Ruochen and carefully helped him up. Her tone remained gentle as before. Come, open your mouth. The simple words of the woman in purple suddenly felt like a warm current, warming Zhang Ruochen's cold heart. At this moment, because of the two words Zhang Ruochen recognized this cheap wife from the bottom of his heart. Just as he drank the medicine, a surge of vigorous energy directly integrated into Zhang Ruochen's limbs, making him feel much more comfortable in an instant. Obviously, this medicine is of great value and is a rare and precious delicacy. Madam, thank you. Zhang Ruochen calmed down and blurted out the words Empress, without any sense of discord. Husband, this is what I should do. No, you're welcome. As soon as the words Nyangzi entered her ears, Murong Shui's face turned red with embarrassment, and her heart was as sweet as drinking honey. Due to her unattractive appearance since childhood, other men always show disgust and avoid her like snakes and scorpions. So for Murong Shui, Zhang Ruochen's simple two words were simply more beautiful than any fairy sound in the world. Madam, how did you do this? At the moment when Murong Shui took away the medicine bowl, Zhang Ruochen accidentally noticed a shocking bruise on her arm inside her sleeve. Suddenly, I couldn't help but furrow my brows slightly. Husband, I'm fine. I just walked carelessly before and fell to the ground and rubbed against it. I'll recover soon. A hint of panic flashed in Murong Shue's eyes, and she quickly pulled her sleeve to cover the wound. She then quickly turned around and walked towards the outside. Husband, please rest assured and recuperate first. You don't need to worry about anything else. I will cut the medicine and send it to you tomorrow morning. Upon seeing this, Zhang Ruochen could only smile helplessly, let go of his doubts, and immediately lay in bed, closing his eyes and recuperating. I don't know how long it has been. Suddenly, a very low conversation came from outside the house. Sister Shui, you really can't go to the clinic to try your medicine anymore. You're already in poor health, and if you go again, your body will have an accident. Xiaohan, I have made up my mind. You don't need to persuade me anymore. Now that my ancestor has passed away, the powerful family has targeted me and cut off all my salary. The medicine for treating my husband's injury is very expensive. Apart from trying the medicine, I can't earn enough money to buy medicine for my husband. Sister Shui, that man is just a son-in-law, and we have only been together for a few days. Is it really worth it for you to suffer so much for such a man? Of course it's worth it. Since we're already married, as a wife, I have to fulfill my duty as a wife. My husband is sick, and I have no shirking my duty to cure him. As long as I have one breath left, I won't give up. Alright, Xiaohan, don't say anything, hurry back. If the steward finds out, I'll punish you again. I'll go to the pharmacy. The medicine I took, surprisingly, she used her body to test the medicine and exchanged it for me. Listening to the extremely low-pressure conversation outside, at this moment, Zhang Ruochen's heart seemed to be suddenly pierced hard by a needle. So painful. This kind of pain is heartache. He never expected that his cheap wife would pay so much for him. The next moment, Zhang Ruochen suddenly lifted his head, tears rolling down his starry eyes. At this moment, in Zhang Ruochen's heart, besides heartache, there is endless emotion. In this life, as long as Zhang Ruochen has one breath left, I will never allow even one person to bully you. If the gods and Buddha bully you, I Zhang Ruochen will kill the gods and slaughter the Buddha. Zhang Ruochen clenched his fist tightly, with a resolute expression in his eyes that he had never seen before in his life. Next up. Without any warning. Puff. Zhang Ruochen's heart suddenly hurt, and he lowered his head and opened his mouth, spraying out a large mouthful of blood. That mouthful of blood, purple-black in color, sprayed directly onto the half-worn blood jade hanging around his neck. Buzz, buzz. Blood jade absorbed the blood and suddenly shone brightly, enveloping Zhang Ruochen's entire body. The next moment, an ancient voice that seemed to cross an endless river of time and vicissitudes suddenly exploded in Yi Qingtian's mind. 10,000 years have passed in a blink of an eye. After 10,000 years, the eternal tomb has finally come to light again. Those who are destined, congratulations on successfully opening the eternal tomb and becoming the new owner of it. Chapter 2. Eternal Devouring Technique. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Boom. As soon as this ancient voice appeared, a mighty force enveloped Zhang Ruochen, pulling his consciousness into an unfamiliar land. Zhang Ruochen's mind was dizzy at first, and when he regained consciousness, he found himself in a dazzling starry sky. More precisely, this is a magnificent group of ancient tombs nestled in the starry sky. From a distance, these ancient tombs are boundless, like a river of ancient tombs, making Zhang Ruochen's scalp tingle with excitement. Tomb of Tianlong Zhanzuan. The Tomb of Zhitian Ancient Demon. Tomb of Qinlong Ancestor. Tomb of Tsangshuan Sword Saint. Zhang Ruochen's consciousness was immediately enveloped by a terrifying force, constantly flashing past an ancient tomb. Just looking at the words on those ancient tombs, Zhang Ruochen felt his soul tremble, as if encountering some kind of terrifying world. A destined person, congratulations on becoming the master of the eternal heaven tomb. In the future, you will bear the heavy burden of suppressing this eternal heaven tomb. At a moment when Zhang Ruochen was inexplicably shocked, the ancient voice that had just sounded in his mind once again. Becoming the Lord of the Eternal Heavenly Tombs, as a gift for meeting, I will reward you with a unique medical skill called the Great Wilderness Dark Eyes Sutra. Boom. As soon as the sound fell, an ancient magic spell immediately merged into Zhang Ruochen's body. The De Huang Ming Tong Jing is unparalleled in medicine and poison. After being passed down, Zhang Ruochen became equivalent to half a medical saint and a gambling saint. In addition, Zhang Ruochen's eyes directly turned into dark golden, transforming into the ancient and legendary dark pupils, capable of seeing through all diseases and causes in the world. Moreover, it allows all toxins in the world to have nowhere to hide. Next, the highlight begins, and you will receive the inheritance of Eternal Devotion Technique. With Eternal Devotion Technique, your future path will become magnificent. Before Zhang Ruochen could come to his senses, an even more terrifying ancient magic formula surged into Zhang Ruochen's body under the cover of a terrifying force. With the Eternal Devotion Technique and the terrifying force entering his body, Zhang Ruochen's meridians and elixir fields, which were originally abandoned by Qin Tian, miraculously recovered once again, even stronger than before. Not only that, but also, his martial arts realm quickly rose from a complete martial arts waste to the 9 heavens of the physical realm. The cultivation of the 9 heavens in the physical realm, although not comparable to Zhang Ruochen's peak period, at least gave him some self-protection power. Your current level is too low to stay in the eternal tomb for a long time. When you reach the peak of your divine realm, you can come back to this eternal tomb space. At that time, you will learn the true secret about the eternal tomb. The next moment. Boom. A terrifying force suddenly appeared, driving out Zhang Ruochen's consciousness. Murong Shui, you ugly and unlucky bastard, hurry up and take your useless husband out of the inner courtyard. If you toast and don't eat, you'll be punished. Don't blame me for killing you today. Without the protection of your ancestors, what kind of thing are you? Just as Zhang Ruochen regained consciousness, an extremely arrogant and impolite voice suddenly came in from outside the house. Meanwhile, also mixed with Murong Shui's lack of confidence in begging for mercy, Director Zhang, please be kind. My husband is currently very weak. Dr. Wang said that in his current condition, he cannot easily move his body, otherwise a slight mistake could endanger his life. Just be kind and let's stay in the inner courtyard for a few more days. Don't worry, as long as my husband's health recovers, we'll move out, okay? Pop. In the yard, Murong Shui pleaded low and low, but answered with a harsh slap in the face. Deacon Zhang possesses the cultivation of the 3 heavens of the physical realm. Although he did not use all his strength to slap, he still made half of Murong Shui's face bleed and look very miserable. Murong Shui, since you don't want face, then you don't need this face. Young Master Yunxiao has already spoken. You must get out of the inner courtyard today, otherwise I can decide the fate of these 2 useless people. Ha ha ha. Director Zhang gave a cold smile and lifted his right foot, then mercilessly kicked Murong Shui in the stomach. Pop it. Murong Shui fell in response, covering her stomach and trembling with pain, her face full of pain. The once phoenix, now the clown. Being stomped on by labor and capital. This feeling is really great. Ha ha ha. Director Zhang walked over and stepped on Murong Shui, lowering his head and looking down at her from above, his face full of pride. My ancestor is gone, who will continue to protect Murong Shui, you ugly monster. Ha ha ha. At this moment, everyone else on the scene was also mocking and laughing, holding hands to watch the good play. No one had any sympathy for Murong Shui, some only fell into the well. The wall fell and everyone pushed. At this moment, Murong Shui deeply understood the meaning of this sentence. And just as Murong Shui closed her eyes and was preparing to silently endure all this humiliation, a chilling and piercing voice suddenly came from the inner room. In the future, in this world, I, Zhang Ruochen, will protect her. This voice, with a terrifying and domineering aura that shook the soul, immediately frightened Director Zhang and others all over. Director Zhang almost instinctively withdrew his leg from stepping on Murong Shui and quickly took several steps back. Next up, a straight figure, as if a sharp sword was unsheathed, walked straight out of the room, emitting a domineering aura that looked down on the world and was exclusive to me with every move and gesture. Husband! Husband! Murong Shui suddenly lifted his head, and when he saw that the person coming out was Zhang Ruochen, he suppressed his tears for a long time and burst into tears in an instant. At this moment, watching Zhang Ruochen stand up for herself, Murong Shui felt that all her efforts were worth it. I'll go. I thought someone was so arrogant and coaxing. I dare say it's Murong Shui, that useless son.in.law. You're really laughing at me. Ha ha ha. Upon seeing Zhang Ruochen's true appearance, Zhang Ji was momentarily stunned, and then couldn't help but sneer and laugh, his eyes full of mockery. The other people on site also burst into laughter at this moment, looking at Zhang Ruochen's gaze as if he was looking at a clown and a wicked pen. That's right, too, how could they possibly take such a sick seedling or a spineless son.in.law seriously? Madam, with me here, everything is over. In the future, as long as I am Zhang Ruochen, I will never allow anyone to bully you. Whoever dares to touch a single hair on you will have me crush every bone on his body. Zhang Ruochen, with a cold face, carefully lifted Murong Shui from the ground, his voice sounding icy cold. Murong Shui quietly glanced at Zhang Ruochen and then remembered the veil that covered her face, which had just been slapped off, quickly lowered his head with a sense of inferiority, covering his face. Oh, I'm so scared. I'd like to see what you're using to crush my bones today, ha ha ha. Upon hearing this, Deacon Zhang couldn't help but sneer, clearly not taking Zhang Ruochen's threat seriously. This useless son.in.law probably has a high fever and burned his head. He doesn't even look at where this is. He's such a useless person. Can he pretend/force him casually? It's really funny, ha ha ha. The others around were also mocking at this moment, looking at Zhang Ruochen's gaze as if looking at a foolish person. I hope you can still laugh later. Zhang Ruochen raised his head and stared expressionlessly at Director Zhang, then walked step by step towards him. Why bother pretending in front of me? You're really acting/driving me crazy. Today, this deacon won't make you laugh. I'll make you cry. Ha ha ha. Upon seeing this, Director Zhang immediately sneered and laughed, completely ignoring Zhang Ruochen. Chapter 3. The first physical fitness on the World War Sports Ranking. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Kid, just now I used my hand to slap your ugly wife's face and even kicked her with my foot. What can you do to me? Ha ha ha. Director Zhang seemed afraid that the matter might not be big enough, so he repeated what had just happened. As he spoke, he laughed wildly and seemed very arrogant. Okay, great. Zhang Ruochen's face remained expressionless, he nodded lightly, and then his speed skyrocketed, like a lightning bolt, shooting towards Director Zhang. Click. Before Director Zhang could react, his right hand was twisted off by Zhang Ruochen's backhand. Ah! Deacon Zhang, who was laughing wildly just now has a contorted face in pain, and his eyes are full of fear and pain. At the same time. Click. Zhang Ruochen kicked Director Zhang's right leg directly, instantly shattering the bone of Director Zhang's right leg and causing him to kneel in pain. I just said, if anyone dares to touch my wife's hair, I will crush every bone on her body. Zhang Ruochen stared expressionlessly at Director Zhang, then extended his right hand and quickly pinched every bone on Director Zhang's body. Click, 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 accompanied by a series of crisp noises. Every bone on Director Zhang's body was quickly crushed by Zhang Ruochen, making everyone around him shiver with fear. Ah! Please kill me quickly and let me die happily. Director Zhang's bones were crushed all over his body, and he was like a lump of rotten meat lying on the ground, constantly convulsing in pain. At this moment, Director Zhang understands what life is better than death. Oh my goodness! How could this person be so ruthless? When the onlookers saw what was happening before them, they were all immediately frightened and trembling, their eyes shrouded in endless fear. Take him. Get out immediately. Zhang Ruochen raised his head and scanned the crowd with a cold and merciless gaze. Yes, yes. Upon hearing this, everyone immediately felt as if they had been granted amnesty and rushed over to pick up Director Zhang, then fled one by one. Until they left the yard, everyone's legs and stomachs were still trembling, which was frightening. Madam, it's okay now. Zhang Ruochen turned around and walked over to Murong Shui, touching her face with immense pain. It hurts, right? Husband, I don't hurt. Upon hearing this, Murong Shui shook her head and then remembered her ugly face. She quickly lowered her head and her voice instantly lowered, revealing a deep sense of inferiority. Husband, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you with my ugly face. Lift your head up. Upon seeing this, Zhang Ruochen's heart immediately ached, and his eyes were filled with a look of pity. Murong Shui remained silent for a moment, finally mustering up the courage to lift her head again and stare at Zhang Ruochen with a flickering gaze, unable to dispel the inferiority in her eyes. Madam, remember that your face is not only not ugly, but also unparalleled in the world. Zhang Ruochen raised his right hand and gently caressed Murong Shui's face, his voice filled with tenderness and tenderness. Crown the world. Upon hearing Zhang Ruochen's words, Murong Shui's delicate body trembled uncontrollably. She, who has been ugly all her life, heard someone praise her for the first time. This face is unparalleled in the world. Husband, although I know you deliberately comforted me and told those lies against my heart, I am still very happy. This is the first time in my life that I have been so happy. Thank you. Murong Shui spoke while crying and laughing, with an unprecedented sweetness in her eyes. What if it's a lie? Others, even if it's a lie, I disdain to tell her. Only those who have experienced long nights understand how precious even a moment of light is. Murong Shui, this is the situation right now. Madam, what I just said is all from the bottom of my heart, definitely not a lie. Zhang Ruochen let out a bitter smile and then stared seriously at Murong Shui's face. Madam, I know you don't believe what I'm saying now. Alright, I'll go out first. When I come back, I'll make you dominate the world. Next. Zhang Ruochen briefly cleaned the wound on Murong Shui's face, then turned around and left alone. My face, is there really a day when you will conquer the world? Watching Zhang Ruochen leave, Murong Shui felt both inferiority and nervousness in her heart, but more importantly, deep anticipation. The next moment. Murong Shui, who had never laughed in her lifetime, smiled without warning. This smile, just to meet the man who loves her, doesn't despise her, and cherishes her. How could that silly girl know that she, who is nothing in others' eyes, is the true pride of heaven? Zhang Ruochen walked on the road, with a smile on his face and a light sigh. He, who possesses the Huang Ming Tong Jing, just saw at a glance the terrifying potential that Murong Shui possesses. Murong Shui's physique is actually the legendary wild spirit immortal body. Huangling immortal body and Wanling battle body, ranked first on the World War body list. Among billions of people, it's not easy to have someone with such a physique. And those who possess the body of a wild spirit immortal will give birth to a strange poison in the mother's womb, which is called the wild poison. A person with a poisonous substance in their body will form a kind of dirt on their face, covering up their peerless appearance and making them look extremely ugly. Murong Shui is in this situation. Her ugliness is not her true appearance, but the superficial dirt on her surface. Once this kind of filth is removed, the poison will disappear automatically. People with this physique will not only restore their original peerless appearance, but also unleash the peerless martial arts talent bestowed by heaven, and grow into a martial arts giant in a very short time. Muron Shui had good luck. The original method of elimination had long disappeared, but Zhang Ruochen, who possessed the De Huang Ming Tong Jing, happened to master this ancient secret technique. I have to say, everything is destined by fate. She gave everything to Zhang Ruochen, and Zhang Ruochen gave her a brilliant life. Madam, wait for me. I, Zhang Ruochen, will retrieve everything you have been taken away by someone for you. Zhang Ruochen took a deep breath, then asked an old man for directions, and finally headed straight to the Wanyao Pavilion in Black Cloud City. Wanyao Pavilion, specializing in various spiritual medicines, elixirs, and precious medicinal herbs. Besides that, Wanyao Pavilion also part-time sells intelligence and has intricate connections with various major sections. Its power is extremely terrifying, almost spreading throughout the entire Dongming domain, making it a true giant. And in the Wanyao Gu of Black Cloud City, it is just a small branch among its thousands. However, even so, even the Lord's mansion in Black Cloud City dare not easily provoke the Wanyao Pavilion, as can be seen from this. In order not to cause any unnecessary trouble, Zhang Ruochen bought a mask to wear on his face before entering the Wanyao Pavilion. Young master, may I ask what I need? Our Wanyao Pavilion has everything, as long as the young master can name it, our Wanyao Pavilion can help him find it. Although Wanyao Pavilion is powerful, it is particularly enthusiastic towards guests. As soon as Zhang Ruochen stepped into Wanyao Pavilion, he was warmly welcomed by a young servant in green. Upon hearing this, Zhang Ruochen nodded lightly and then slowly said, Wu Jiao blood, 1000-year ice lotus, fire Lingji. Zhang Ruochen did not conceal anything and immediately mentioned more than 30 medicinal herbs. After listening, the young servant in green took a deep breath and his smile slowly solidified. These things, Wanyao Pavilion has it. However, the value of these medicinal herbs combined is an extremely terrifying number, even if some medium-sized families in Black Cloud City exert the strength of their entire clan, they may not be able to come up with it. This business is too big, it has exceeded the capabilities of the young servant in green. Young master, are you sure you're not joking? The young servant in green settled his mind, then wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and cautiously asked Zhang Ruochen. Chapter 4. High People, Legendary High People. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Do I have that time to joke with you? Zhang Ruochen lowered his voice and let out a hoarse sound, with a huge pressure emanating from his voice, which frightened the young servant in green clothes and made his body tremble. Young master, don't get angry. This matter is beyond my ability. Please wait for me to report it to the Lord. The young servant in green accompanied a smiling face, then quickly turned around and headed straight upstairs. At the same time, on the top floor of Wanyao Pavilion, there is a room decorated in a magnificent manner. As the owner of the Wanyao Pavilion, Lu Qinghe, who holds a high position and authority, actually nods and bows to serve a girl in a red dress wearing a bamboo hat. Miss Yao Ling's visit is truly a great honor for me, Lu Qinghe. If Miss Yao Ling has anything to do, please feel free to give orders. Qinghe guarantees to handle it properly for you. Looking at Jiang Yaoling beside him, Lu Qinghe is now in a state of anxiety and fear. This little ancestor, but the granddaughter that the big shot dotes on the most, if he doesn't take good care of anything, this little ancestor will run back and complain, he doesn't have any good fruit to eat. Master Lu, there's no need to be so polite. I came to Black Cloud City just to relax and try my luck, hoping to break through that annoying bottleneck. Jiang Yaoling smiled, but there was a hint of unhappiness between her eyebrows. Lu Qinghe was considering how to answer the conversation when a somewhat frightened voice suddenly came from outside the room. Master Lu, there is a strange person below who is about to buy Wu Jiao blood, Millennium Ice Lotus, Fire Lingji. The young servant in green outside the door reported everything Zhang Ruochen needed in one breath. Looking at these medicinal herbs alone, it's not uncommon, but if they were all added together, wouldn't it be the kind of refining? Lu Qinghe couldn't see any reaction, but Jiang Yaoling beside him couldn't help but tremble with her delicate body, and a hint of shock flashed through her beautiful pupils. The next moment, Jiang Yaoling's gaze instantly became extremely hot, as if encountering some rare treasure. "Master Lu, let's go. Come with me down and take a look. This fact is so interesting." Jiang Yaoling suppressed the excitement in her heart and directly pulled Lu Qinghe, pushing the door open. "This little ancestor, what kind of tricks are you going to play again?" Watching Jiang Yaoling's eager appearance, Lu Qinghe couldn't help but let out a thud in his heart, with a worried expression on his face. He knows the temperament of this little ancestor very well. Soon, Jiang Yaoling and the other two appeared in front of Zhang Ruochen under the guidance of the young servant in green. "Are you going to buy those medicinal herbs?" Jiang Yaoling stared at Zhang Ruochen, hidden in a pair of beautiful pupils under the bamboo hat, exuding a deep curiosity and intense excitement. "Yes." Zhang Ruochen's words were as precious as gold, and his face calmly stared at Jiang Yaoling. "These medicinal herbs are somewhat special. If you don't mind, could you please let me know their uses?" Jiang Yaoling forcefully suppressed her excitement and asked after her. "Save people." Zhang Ruochen did not conceal anything and looked up and down at Jiang Yaoling thoughtfully. "It seems that my guess earlier was not wrong." Upon hearing Zhang Ruochen's words, Jiang Yaoling's eyes suddenly became even brighter, and the heat in them could not be concealed. "Young master, these medicinal herbs are precious together. I wonder if young master has enough ability to pay for this sum of money." Jiang Yaoling suppressed the excitement in her heart and directly shifted the topic. "No." Zhang Ruochen spread his hands and gently shook his head, saying, "I am now cleaner than my face. You don't have the money to buy so many valuable medicinal herbs. Do you want to come to my Wanyao pavilion to eat the king's meal?" Someone bomb this person out of Wanyao pavilion. Jiang Yaoling had just arrived here when such a thing happened, which made Lu Qinghe, as the owner of the pavilion, instantly furious. If this matter is transmitted back, will he still want his old face? At this moment, Lu Qinghe looked at Zhang Ruochen's gaze, as if he was going to eat people. "Don't move either." Jiang Yaoling, standing beside her, smiled slightly and raised her hand to stop the two rushing guards. She then looked up and down at Zhang Ruochen and said, "Young master, since your pocket is cleaner than your face, what are you planning to pay for this money with?" "Take my eyes." Zhang Ruochen raised his finger to his own eye. "Sorry, our medicine pavilion never closes its eyes." Jiang Yaoling raised the corner of her mouth and stared at Zhang Ruochen with great interest. "Ha ha ha." Seeing this, the onlookers burst into laughter and looked at Zhang Ruochen up and down with strange eyes. "I can't afford to buy these eyes from Wanyao pavilion." Zhang Ruochen remained calm and then gave Jiang Yaoling a deep glance, saying, "I can solve your problem with my eyes. Do you think this is enough to offset the cost of those medicinal herbs?" Upon hearing these words, Jiang Yaoling's expression of interest in her eyes suddenly intensified. "Interesting, it's getting more and more interesting. Hee hee. Miss, this person appears to be an ignorant quack. Can you be deceived by him?" Seeing Jiang Yaoling's inexperienced appearance, there were some kind-hearted people around him who immediately spoke up to remind him. After all, in their eyes, no matter how Zhang Ruochen looks, he looks like a complete scammer. It's okay, after all, life needs fun, Upon hearing this, Jiang Yaoling smiled and immediately stared at Zhang Ruochen, saying, "Young master, continue talking. Miss, do you feel unbearable pain in your left chest every late night? Not only that, as long as you practice on the night of the full moon, your elixir field will feel as if it has been burned or frozen for a while. And your Yongquan acupoint, every 12 hours, becomes like being pricked by a needle." Zhang Ruochen circled around Jiang Yaoling, then stood still and calmly spoke slowly. "Sleeping trough. Even at this level of trash, do you have the courage to come out and deceive? His words are so messy, I don't think even a 3-year-old child can be fooled. Not to mention a 3-year-old child, even a dog can't be fooled. It's so funny. Ha ha ha. Everyone around heard the words, everyone burst into laughter one by one, and their eyes towards Zhang Ruochen were filled with mockery. At this moment, among the 100 people on the scene, only Jiang Yaoling did not smile. Excuse me, senior. Do you have a way to solve these problems? Jiang Yaoling's voice suddenly became unprecedentedly solemn, exuding a deep sense of respect. When you practice martial arts in the future, slightly change the way you move your skills. First, go to the Tsuchi acupoint, then go to the Yongquan acupoint, and then go to the Tianyin acupoint, Shaoshang acupoint. Zhang Ruochen took a breath and directly mentioned dozens of acupoints. I'll go. What a mess of acupoint directions are all these? Is this kid intentionally coming to make fun of me? No way. Laughing makes my stomach ache. Ha ha ha. The people around them immediately smiled and bent over, and many even laughed until tears streamed down their faces. Only Jiang Yaoling, at this moment, his expression became more serious, and his gaze towards Zhang Ruochen became more respectful. The next moment. Just as everyone was constantly mocking Zhang Ruochen, Jiang Yaoling sat cross-legged and immediately closed her eyes to start practicing. When everyone saw the situation, they immediately showed a look of shock on their faces. This little girl doesn't look like a fool, why do you really believe what that scammer said? At a certain moment. Boom. Just as everyone was discussing, Jiang Yaoling suddenly burst into a golden light all over her body. Then, an extremely terrifying thunderous sound came directly from Jiang Yaoling's body, causing the entire hall to tremble violently. Next up. A terrifying aura surged out of Jiang Yaoling's body like a hurricane, directly lifting many people around him up in the air. How terrifying. Everyone turned their heads to look at Jiang Yaoling, their eyes filled with endless fear. Ningdan realm. It turned out to be. Jiang Yaoling suddenly opened her eyes, filled with both surprise and shock. She never dreamed that, the casual words of this person in front of her not only made her suffer from stubborn illnesses, but also broke through the bottleneck that had been troubling her for 2 years, and promoted her to the realm of condensed pills in one fell swoop. A master. I didn't expect Jiang Yaoling to have such good luck. I just came out and met such an extraordinary expert. Jiang Yaoling looked at Zhang Ruochen's gaze and suddenly underwent a complete transformation. In her eyes, at this moment, everything is full of admiration. The next moment. Pop it. Jiang Yaoling knelt down on both knees and respectfully bowed to Zhang Ruochen, saying, "Young Jiang Yaoling, thank you to the senior for your kindness. In the future, if the senior has orders, Yaoling will go through fire and water, and will never refuse to die." Lying trough. Is this person really a hermit expert? When everyone saw this scene in front of them, their faces immediately showed surprise, and they all felt a burning sensation on their faces, as if someone had slapped them in public. Chapter 5. News of Thousand-Year Dragon Blood. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhang Ruochen was once the first god of war in the Great Qin Dynasty, and he appeared calm in such a scene. He had only one purpose from beginning to end, to obtain these spiritual medicines to treat the wild poison on his mother Murong Shui. Thank you, there's no need. Our relationship is a transaction, so the elixir I need. Jiang Yaoling only then remembered that incident and looked at Lu Qinghe beside her. Master Lu, let's go down and prepare the spiritual medicine. Jiang Yaoling said, and a strange light flashed in her beautiful eyes. She looked at Zhang Ruochen thoughtfully. I don't know what the senior wants these spiritual medicines for. She had a vague guess in her heart, but couldn't be certain. Zhang Ruochen's eyes suddenly turned cold, and a chilling killing intent emanated from his body, causing everyone around him to feel their hair stand on end. What a strong killing intent. Lu Qinghe exclaimed in surprise and quickly blocked Jiang Yaoling, his eyes full of fear. The people around them also retreated one after another, fearless. Coming to Wanyao Pavilion, there must be some cultivation foundation on their body. Such a cold killing opportunity has made them feel extremely fearful. Jiang Yaoling's small face was full of confusion. Senior, Yaoling is just asking casually. If there is anything offensive, please forgive me, Senior. Zhang Ruochen suppressed his murderous intent and his expression returned to indifference. Qin Tianxi and Qin Qingchan seized his Dao Longgu and Jiuyou bloodline, which led him to his current state. He naturally did not want his wife Murong Shui to follow in his footsteps. He was indeed a bit too sensitive just now and couldn't control it. Thank you very much, Miss Yaoling. The matter of Lingyao can be considered as a favor I owe you. Zhang Ruochen arched his hand. Jiang Yaoling's beautiful eyes flickered. The killing intent just released from this young man was extremely terrifying, and he was probably not as simple as he seemed. Lu Qinghe stared at Zhang Ruochen with solemn eyes and said coldly. I'll prepare the spiritual medicine for you right away, but there's no more in the 1,000-year dragon blood medicine pavilion, so I'm afraid I can't gift it to you. Zhang Ruochen was not in a hurry yet, and Jiang Yaoling had already turned black. No. Didn't I just let go of what I said? Didn't I break my promise? She originally wanted to say fart, but she thought that Zhang Ruochen was still watching from the side, not wanting to damage her image in his heart. Miss Yaoling, let me finish speaking. Lu Qinghe hurriedly said, although we don't have Millennium Dragon blood, I know there is a place where it exists. Zhang Ruochen raised his eyebrows slightly and said, where? Lu Qinghe smiled and said, in a month, the Xianhan secret realm that the 4 major families of Hanlongzhou will explore together will open, and there will be a millennium-old dragon inside. Jiang Yaoling stared at him with an incredulous expression on her face. Master Gu, you may be crazy. That's a 1,000-year-old dragon, can ordinary people deal with it? Lu Qinghe did not directly answer Jiang Yaoling, but said to Zhang Ruochen, Your Excellency, why not go upstairs and discuss in detail? Zhang Ruochen nodded silently. Millennium Dragon blood is one of the main medicines, and it must be indispensable. We will do whatever it takes to obtain it. In the magnificent attic decorated on the top floor, Lu Qinghe greeted Zhang Ruochen to sit down. How do you address me? After hesitating for a moment, Zhang Ruochen replied, My surname is Zhang. Upon hearing this answer, Lu Qinghe paused for a moment and stared at the deep eyes behind Zhang Ruochen's mask for a long time. Okay, since Mr. Zhang doesn't want to reveal his identity, I won't ask and just talk about it. Zhang Gongzi, we have extremely reliable intelligence. The millennium-old dragon was unable to transform into a dragon because it had injured its original source earlier. This time, the Xianhan secret realm was opened, and it happened to be the time when its oil was depleted and its lamp was dry. If you could have the strength to condense the pill in the middle and later stages, perhaps you could accomplish this matter. After he finished speaking, he met Zhang Ruochen's eyes again, as if wanting to see something. Zhang Ruochen's expression was natural, and he secretly began to calculate in his heart. The cultivation realm starts from the physical realm, and then includes 8 major realms. Gathering qi, condensing pills, storing gods, cultivating gods, transforming mortals, destiny, transforming gods, and breaking through emptiness. Completing 10 levels of heaven in each realm is considered complete. These 9 realms are at the level of humanity. It is rumored that after breaking the void, there will still be divine and immortal paths, which are secrets that only powerful sects can touch. When he was still the first god of war in the Great Qin Dynasty, he was in the realm of destiny and was hailed as the most likely genius to reach the level of breaking the void within 10 years. However, everything is like fleeting clouds and smoke. He is only in the 9th level of the physical realm now, and he is still one big realm away from the condensing pill. However, within a month, he had an absolute confidence in ascending to the condensing pill realm, but could not enter the Xianhan's secret realm. Jiang Yaoling saw that he had been silent for a long time, and a hint of cunning flashed in his eyes. Zhang Gongzi, are you worrying about how to enter the secret realm? Zhang Ruochen glanced sideways at the proud Jiang Yaoling, feeling helpless in his heart. I don't know what Miss Yaoling can do. Jiang Yaoling hugged her hands and said boldly, there are also slots in our Wanya pavilion, but there are only 6. You can enter with me when the time comes. Lu Qinghe was about to drink tea when he heard this and suddenly took a sip of tea. Miss Yaoling. Jiang Yaoling glanced at him coldly and said, Master Lu, what's the problem? Lu Qinghe's face was speechless. Does he dare to have any questions about his attitude and gaze? No problem, Mrs. Decision is fine. Zhang Ruochen felt a sense of joy in his heart. He didn't expect things to be resolved so easily, it was just that his relationship was lacking. He doesn't want to say anything useless anymore. When his strength improves, he will repay it. Miss Yaoling and Lord Lu, thank you very much for your help. It's time for me to go back. If my wife can't find me, she will be anxious. Jiang Yaoling's smile paused, but she quickly concealed it. I didn't expect that Mr. Zhang is still a family-oriented person. Let's meet at the Wanyao Pavilion on the 3rd day of next month. Zhang Ruochen took the spiritual medicine sent by his assistant and left the Wanyao Pavilion. After circling around a few circles, he shook off the person sent by Wanyao Pavilion to investigate his identity before returning to the Morong family. Half an hour after Zhang Ruochen left the Wanyao Pavilion, the 2 servants returned sweating profusely to report. Master Gu, Miss Medicine Spirit, I am incompetent and I have lost my people. Jiang Yaoling didn't seem surprised by this, just a little melancholy. This person is extraordinary, but I don't know if he can be used for me. I will mobilize the Wanyao Pavilion to search for her. When Zhang Ruochen returned to the small courtyard, Morong Shui had not yet returned. Recently, under his strong suggestion, Morong Shui no longer acted as a human flesh sandbag for people, which made him feel much more at ease. He spent half an hour tidying up a small room next to him as a temporary isolation room, barely usable. Creak. The small courtyard door was opened, and Morong Shui walked in. Seeing Zhang Ruochen tidying up the small room, a hint of disappointment flashed in her bright eyes. However, it was only for a moment that she restrained her emotions and ran over anxiously. Husband, your injury hasn't healed yet. I'll take care of these things. The words carried a tremolo, as if the heart was in pain to the extreme. She was about to go in and tidy up, but Zhang Ruochen pulled her back and held her in his arms. Madam, I have already packed up. For the next month, I will have to practice in seclusion and participate in the trial of the Xianhan's secret realm. When I come back, I can cure your face. Chapter 6. Cloud striking at the door. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Morong Shui only reached his chin, and upon hearing this, she looked up at Zhang Ruochen with an incredulous expression on her face. At the moment she touched Zhang Ruochen, she immediately parted ways, feeling inferior. She didn't even have the courage to confront Zhang Ruochen. Fix your own face. She dare not think about this matter. Grandpa had already tried many methods when he was here, but they all failed. But she didn't say anything, as long as her husband has this idea. So, isn't it because my husband disliked my appearance that he moved here? She nervously grabbed the corner of Zhang Ruochen's clothes with her small hands, as it was a bit of an inquiry, and she was worried that Zhang Ruochen would get angry. Zhang Ruochen felt a pain in her heart, wondering how much injustice she had suffered to make her so cautious. Fool, we are husband and wife. Don't say such foolish things in the future. Under his gentle soothing voice, Morong Shui finally felt more at ease and presented the purchased spiritual medicine to Zhang Ruochen. Husband, I have received much less money these past 2 days. It takes me 3 days to buy such a little spiritual medicine. Why don't I continue to accompany and practice tomorrow? Zhang Ruochen's face suddenly turned black, and Mu Rongxue was so frightened that she tightly grasped the corner of his clothes. If I say you're not allowed to go, then you're not allowed to go. If you want to be beaten, your husband and I have now recovered from my injuries and have plenty of strength. Mu Rongxue was scared and ran away from Zhang Ruochen. No, I don't want it. I'll go wash up. As Zhang Ruochen watched her fleeing figure, his heart became even more determined, and he must guard this girl who was dedicated to him. The days of closed cultivation passed quickly, and his cultivation process was also very smooth. He has already cultivated the eternal devouring technique to a small level, and the speed of absorbing spiritual power has increased by nearly 10 times. This speed is definitely a dimensionality-reducing blow for cultivators in the divine realm. After all, the most important thing in the realm of gathering spirits and condensing pills is to absorb enough spiritual power, which can double the speed of cultivation. After his cultivation was activated, the spiritual power around him quickly surged in. This is no longer as simple as absorption, but as its name suggests, it tends to plunder and devour. He quickly entered a state of selflessness, only expanding his dantian and meridians and strengthening his physical body under the continuous influx of spiritual power. On the fourth day, he successfully broke into the spirit gathering realm, and then the spirit gathering was a double heaven and a double heaven. With accumulated experience and the absorption speed of the eternal devotion technique, cultivation is as simple as drinking water and eating. At this moment, Zhang Ruochen, who was practicing, was awakened by a loud noise, and the breakthrough process was forced to be interrupted. His eyes were full of suspicion. There was a voice from Mu Rongxue outside the door, but she had a timid personality and it was impossible for her to have any conflict with others. Someone must have come to cause trouble. At this moment, in the courtyard, a young man in a white robe with 7 or 8 servants stared fiercely at Mu Rongxue, who was lying on the ground. The young man stood in front of Mu Rongxue, looking at her with disdain. Mu Rongxue, you are so ugly. You thought you could show off your power in the Murong family just because you found a criminal husband. You dare to hit someone like me. Are you tired of living? Mu Rongxue tilted her face and dared not speak. The youth became even more contemptuous of this. Humph, ugly, what about your useless husband? The person who dares to hurt me, let's see if I will break him up in pieces today. Upon hearing that these people were going to deal with their husbands, Mu Rongxue hurriedly said, Murong Yunxiao, my husband is not here. The incident of injuring Director Zhang is all because of me. If you want to punish me, punish me. No matter what kind of punishment, I can accept it. Murong Yunxiao coldly glanced at Mu Rongxue. Mu Rongxue, the last words left by our ancestors, cannot touch you, otherwise we would have killed you long ago, causing our family to lose Tianfeng crystal. It's not an exaggeration for someone like you to die 800 times. Get lost. He kicked Mu Rongxue away and walked towards Zhang Ruochen's closed room. Zhang Ruochen exhaled a breath of turbid air, stabilizing his cultivation. At the door, a dark shadow appeared. Zhang Ruochen, if you're still a man, hurry up and get out of here and die. Those who dare to hurt me will turn against you. What, do you only know how to hide behind women? He gestured to his servants to kick the door. After Zhang Ruochen stabilized his cultivation, he opened the room and his sharp gaze swept over. The 2 servants who were preparing to kick the door also froze. When they met Zhang Ruochen's gaze, they felt that they were not facing a person at all, but a fierce beast. That bloodthirsty gaze made them shiver. Get lost. Zhang Ruochen suddenly let go of the dual power of the gathering spirit realm on his body, and the 2 of them were like broken cloth bags, shaken and flew out, and then fell heavily to the ground. Gathering spirit realm, no wonder you are so bold and reckless. Murong Yunxiao was somewhat surprised, but did not show any fear. Zhang Ruochen ignored him and walked to Mu Rongxue's side, gently lifting her up. Madam, who hurt you just now? Mu Rongxue shook her head. Husband, no one hurts me. Zhang Ruochen's way of handling things is very simple and rough. She dare not let Zhang Ruochen know, otherwise there will definitely be a bigger conflict. It was a fight from Ben Shao, and even Zhu Lingjing Air Chong Tian dared to be so reckless. Do you really think there is no one in our Morong family? Morong Yunxiao's body was illuminated by a blue spiritual light, as if shrouded in mist, emanating from all around her. At a glance, Zhang Ruochen could see his realm, which was the 5 heavens of gathering spirits. 3 small realms higher than oneself. Waste, those who dare to fight with less capital. I won't let you die so easily later, I will slowly torture you. A hint of malice flashed in Morong Yunxiao's eyes, and in the next moment, he suddenly rushed towards Zhang Ruochen, clenching his fist and smashing it towards his life gate. Zhang Ruochen's eyes flickered as he pushed Morong Shui away, then greeted her with a fist. Bang! Fists collided, creating a wave of air, and all the servants next to them were swept away. Zhang Ruochen and Morong Qiu were deadlocked in place, their spiritual power unleashed wildly, and the dazzling light made people unable to open their eyes. After Zhang Ruochen blocked this blow, he had a rough understanding of his current strength. He sneered. If you reach 3 small realms and still want to sneak an attack, it's something that can't be seen on the table. Morong Yunxiao couldn't help but feel his cheeks burning, and the difference in small realm was also very large. Otherwise, he would have used the method of dividing it into several levels of heaven. Although his own realm was 3 times higher than the heavens, he still couldn't crush Zhang Ruochen, which was a bit embarrassing. Zhang Ruochen, let me die less. He exerted all his strength to activate his spiritual power, but was unable to suppress Ruochen's strength, which made him somewhat suspicious of life. Does realm suppression have no effect on Zhang Ruochen? How could it be? In a moment of anger, he launched his martial arts skill, the stone palm, and a force was suddenly released from him, attacking Zhang Ruochen along the palm, wanting to shock him to death. Chapter 7. Humiliating my lady, there is a way to die. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhang Ruochen keenly sensed the fierce force and a cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He also exerted his strength and hit Morong Yunxiao in front of him. After Morong Yunxiao activated his martial arts skills, his face became increasingly ugly. The power of the stone fist is very fierce, and even a stone will be shattered by its power when hit. But after he exerted his power on Zhang Ruochen, he only felt his own strength disappear like a mud ox into the sea without a trace. As he was puzzled, an even stronger force struck, and the sleeves of his hands instantly shattered. He quickly withdrew his strength and saved his hands from being shattered by the strange force. Zhang Ruochen seized this opportunity and turned around, kicking the bewildered Morong Yunxiao in the stomach. Bang! With a loud bang, Morong Yunxiao was kicked out and smashed into the courtyard wall, causing cracks to appear on the walls behind him. Zhang Ruochen quickly rushed up to him, grabbed his collar, and threw him to the ground. Another heavy blow, Morong Yunxiao coughed up a mouthful of blood. Zhang Ruochen stared at him coldly. Since Deacon Zhang is your subordinate, you should know the consequences of touching my wife, right? Morong Yunxiao naturally knew that Deacon Zhang's bones were all shattered and he had become a useless person. He struggled to get up, but was stomped on by Zhang Ruochen. Zhang Ruochen, I am the nephew of the head of the Morong family. If you touch me, the Morong family will not let you go. Morong Shui also said repeatedly, husband, let him go. When Morong Yunxiao saw Morong Shui pleading, he not only didn't thank him, but also stared at Zhang Ruochen and Morong Shui with resentment. Even made him feel like he had found his arrogant capital again. Ha ha ha. Zhang Ruochen, you are just the doorstep husband of this lowly maid, not even a waste. If you dare to touch me today, you will definitely repay you and that lowly maid 100 times and 1,000 times more. Zhang Ruochen's gaze was cold and he said coldly, you're a lowly maid, what kind of thing are you? He moved and stepped on it. Click. Accompanied by a scream from Murong Yunxiao, one of his legs was crushed. No matter who you are, no matter what your identity is, bullying my wife is the way to take death. Accompanied by the sound of bones shattering, Murong Yunxiao's limbs were broken. Those servants were startled by the sight, and in their eyes, the cloud sky young master in the gathering spirit realm was like a fairy. But now, surprisingly, it is still difficult to escape the same fate as Deacon Zhang. Take him and get out of here. If you dare to come again, kill you all. As Zhang Ruochen's gaze approached, the servants all lowered their heads and dared not even look at him. Murong Yunxiao, who had his limbs broken, fled from the rough terrain. When Zhang Ruochen looked at Murong Shui again, he saw that her small face was a bit pale. "Madam, what's wrong?" He was very nervous. Murong Shui was still fine just now, why did he suddenly change? Murong Shui was worried and looked up at Zhang Ruochen's eyes. She didn't dodge anymore, as if she wanted to take another look at Zhang Ruochen. "Husband, we injured Murong Yunxiao. Third uncle will definitely punish us. Maybe he will take action against you because of this matter. You should hide outside for a while." Zhang Ruochen knew that the third uncle she was referring to was the current head of the Murong family, Murong Bowen. There are many masters in the Murong family, and now he is not a match for the Murong family. Zhang Ruochen frowned slightly and said, "What about you? Let's go together." Murong Shui's expression darkened and he said, "I won't leave, and my ancestors left their last words before their death. They dare not harm me." Murong Shui spoke and pulled Zhang Ruochen away from the side door, escorting him out. "I still have some silver here. Please find a place to hide first. Whether you're in the city or outside, don't let anyone find you." Murong Shui stuffed the money into Zhang Ruochen's still stunned hand, turned around, and ran away. Zhang Ruochen looked at the silver in his hand and was moved in his heart. He could hear the meaning of Murong Shui's words just now clearly, indicating that he wanted him to escape from Black Cloud City. This means that they may have to completely separate and have no further relationship. He wouldn't believe that the Murong family would let her go because of their so-called last words, and that dying like a lamp is the reality. Moreover, during this period, whether it was Director Zhang or Murong Yunxiao, they were actually all aimed at Murong Shui. Zhang Ruochen also roughly guessed the reason. Murong Shui's father was the legitimate eldest son of the Murong family and a legitimate heir. And he only has an only daughter like Murong Shui, so theoretically, Murong Shui is the true heir of the Murong family. But now, Murong Shui's third uncle, Murong Bowen, is the head of the family. In this situation, as long as the legitimate lineage of Murong Shui is still present, he will not be able to sit steadily and will definitely take action against Murong Shui. There was a cold light flickering in Zhang Ruochen's eyes. This matter cannot be solved by him leaving. As long as Murong Shui is still at Murong's house, Murong Bowen will not stop targeting her. He had no intention of leaving at first, but after seeing these things clearly, he had made a decision that he must take Murong Shui away and make the Murong family temporarily afraid to take action against her. He found a ghostwriting stall near the Wanyao Pavilion, gave some silver coins, wrote a letter with paper and pen, and had it delivered to the Wanyao Pavilion before rushing back to the Murong family. Murong family. As soon as Murong Shui returned to the yard, she saw that the people from the law enforcement hall were already waiting here. The two leaders were dressed in dark red robes, emitting a cold aura. One of them nodded slightly, returning with a kind smile, the other had a gloomy gaze and a sneer on the corner of his mouth. "Fourth uncle, elderly." Murong Shui saluted the two. The middle-aged man with a gloomy gaze and a frail figure angrily rebuked, "Don't call me fourth uncle. I don't have a niece like you. How dare I instigate outsiders to deal with my own family? Do you know your surname?" This person is the fourth uncle of Murong Shui, named Murong Boy. Murong Shui quickly explained, "Fourth uncle, Zhang Ruochen is my husband, not an outsider, and also Yunxiao's cousin. He sent someone to come. Enough. If you have anything to say to me, please reply to the Dharma hall. Murong boy angrily rebuked and asked the deacon to take the person. The Murong family law enforcement hall is dimly lit, with black tiles and red walls. Just getting close gives a very oppressive feeling. In the lobby, Murong Shue knelt on the ground, while Murong boy sat high above the public hall. Murong Shue, you know the sin. Murong boy let out a furious shout, which frightened Murong Shue's body. She stubbornly said, I don't know. Originally, it was Yinxiao's cousin who deliberately came to cause trouble and even took action against my husband. What's wrong with us? She's not stupid, and now she can see that fourth uncle is just coming for her. Elderly was also in the hall, and upon hearing what she said, he couldn't help but frown and say, did Zhang Su and Murong Yunxiao really trouble you first? Murong Shue hurriedly said, Elderly, I can swear with my life that it was they who came to cause trouble and attacked me. My husband was so angry that he hit them. Elderly looked at Murong Bowen next to him and said, Brother boy, I'm afraid there's something suspicious about this matter. We should investigate it thoroughly. Murong boy's eyes flashed with a hint of strangeness, staring coldly at Elderly. Humph, I'm afraid Elderly didn't help Zhang Ruochen because he was also a son-in-law, so he developed a compassionate heart. Elderly's gaze froze, he turned his face and said coldly, this has nothing to do with my son-in-law, it's just that the law enforcement court needs evidence to handle the case. How can you convict Schwer without any evidence? He is the evidence. Murong boy sneered, bring me the person. Chapter 8. The True Purpose of Law Enforcement Hall. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Soon, Murong Yunxiao, the dying deacon Zhang, and 7 servants were brought up. Murong Yunxiao saw Murong Shue with a fierce and gloomy gaze. Third uncle, this lowly maid has shamelessly humiliated our Murong family. She dares to take action against her own people and kill her. Kill her. Deacon Zhang, who was on the brink of death, didn't know where his strength came from. He trembled and raised a finger to point at Murong Shue, his eyes filled with resentment. Murong boy gave Elderly a proud glance before coldly saying, Murong Shue, can you plead guilty? You must think carefully. Now that all the certified evidence is available, even the last words of your ancestors cannot protect you. Murong Shue felt sorrow in her heart. What crime do I have? Just because I am a legitimate descendant of the Murong family. I don't argue with anything, I only want to see my mother once a year. Why are you treating me like this? Faced with Murong Shue's questioning, Murong boy's face darkened. This kind of thing can be done privately, but once it is said, its nature changes. Murong Shue, stop talking nonsense. Your wrongdoing is already a fact, and now confessing to the law is enough. I'll ask you one last time, do you admit your guilt? Do you want to explain Zhang Ruochen's whereabouts? With a stubborn expression on her face, Murong Shue replied forcefully, I am not guilty, and my husband Zhang Ruochen is also not guilty. Murong boy was furious. Drag down and hit 50 sticks, see if she still speaks hard. 2 law enforcement officers dragged Murong Shue to the outside of the hall and began executing him. Under intense pain, Murong Shue fainted. When she woke up again, she was splashed with cold water and returned to the lobby. Murong boy stared at her coldly and sneered, Murong Shue, confess and reveal Zhang Ruochen's whereabouts. Murong Shue was weak, but her gaze was unusually firm. I don't recognize it. The world in her eyes seemed to have turned gray-white, icy and piercing. Murong boy's face turned pale with iron. Murong Shue's tenacity had exceeded his expectations, but if she didn't admit her guilt, she wouldn't be able to submit to third brother herself. He pondered for a moment and decided to change his strategy. Approaching Murong Shue, he whispered, Murong Shue, as long as you confess, we can no longer pursue Zhang Ruochen. Although his original task was to kill both Zhang Ruochen and Murong Shue, it was clearly impossible to do so, so he had to solve Morong Shue's problem first before making any plans. Upon hearing these words, a hint of sadness flashed in Morong Shue's bewildered eyes. She didn't spend much time with Zhang Ruochen, but it was her happiest day, as if she had family again. If pleading guilty can save her husband, she is willing. She stared coldly at Morong Boy, who burst out laughing proudly. Morong Shue said coldly, "Swear, if the Morong family takes action against my husband again, you will die and disappear." Morong Boy's face slightly changed, and the oath, which is a mysterious thing, still has a great impact on practitioners. But now I want to make Morong Shue confess, it seems like that's the only way. Anyway, there will be a way to kill Zhang Ruochen, don't worry. I, Morong Boy, swear that if the Morong family continues to pursue Zhang Ruochen in the future, I will die and die. Morong Shue felt a moment of melancholy and became somewhat numb. The ending was already predetermined, and this was probably the last thing she could do for her husband. Morong Boy hurriedly said, "Hurry up and bring the transcript, let her draw an inscription." As Morong Shue was about to write in confusion, a figure suddenly fell outside the law enforcement hall. "Madam." Zhang Ruochen saw the pitiful appearance of Morong Shue, and his anger surged. The murderous aura on his body instantly enveloped the law enforcement hall. Upon hearing the call and seeing Zhang Ruochen, Morong Shue suddenly burst into tears. "Husband!" Morong Yunxiao saw Zhang Ruochen and roared, "Zhang Ruochen! How dare you come back? Fourth uncle, kill him, kill him!" Morong Shue grabbed Morong Boy's pant leg and said, "Fourth uncle, you promised me to let go of my husband. I admit my guilt." Morong Boy impatiently held down Morong Shue's hand and drew a circle on the transcript, and the confession letter was considered completed. "Get lost." Morong Boy kicked Morong Shue aside and then walked towards Zhang Ruochen with a sneer. Zhang Ruochen's eyes were red, but he still came late, causing the Empress to suffer such injustice. And she is still trying her best to find a way out for herself. While feeling guilty, his anger towards the Morong family had reached its peak. Today, even if using a secret technique and achieving complete decline in cultivation, we will still take Morong Shue away. Die. Zhang Ruochen stimulated his whole body cultivation and frantically operated the eternal devotion technique, condensing a fist seal that fiercely smashed towards Morong Boy. This punch is called the Mountain Punch, which he accidentally acquired. Below the realm of divine powers, it is definitely the most powerful martial arts skill. As long as the spiritual power is sufficient, the power can be infinitely strong, perfectly demonstrating the power of the eternal devouring technique. At first, Morong Boyo didn't pay much attention, but as the fist imprint approached, he felt the power in it and his face instantly changed. He quickly stepped forward to resist, wanting to take on the blow. Boom! With a loud bang, the energy shield he had gathered shattered, causing others to fly backwards and crash into the wall, leaving behind cracks. Elder Li and the deacon of the law enforcement hall were all shocked. This kid seemed to be the second heaven of the gathering spirit, but he was able to repel Morong Boy, who was fully satisfied with the gathering spirit, which was a bit too strong. However, upon seeing his pale complexion, it became clear that he must have used some kind of secret technique to unleash such a fierce blow, and there must be no strength to fight back in the future. Morong Boy wiped away the blood from the corner of his mouth and said coldly, okay. I underestimated you, this useless person." He fully stimulated his spiritual cultivation and walked towards the weak Zhang Ruochen, with endless killing opportunities in his eyes. Morong Shue climbed up to Zhang Ruochen's side and scolded Morong Boy. "Morong Boy, you have sworn." Morong Boy said coldly, I didn't go after him again. He came to die himself." He spoke, his palm shaped like a knife, shrouded in a layer of spiritual power, piercing into Zhang Ruochen's heart. Zhang Ruochen, who was originally weak, suddenly erupted and punched, with a fierce force that instantly penetrated Morong Boy's heart. Murong boy flew backwards again, with blood splattering during the process. Under this blow, even if you don't die, you'll lose half of your life. Murong boy smashed all the tables during the trial before stopping, weakly pointing at Zhang Ruochen. You. Me. You guys hurry up and take him down. Zhang Ruochen did indeed deceive him, and after quickly recovering his spiritual power with the help of eternal devouring technique, he kept pretending to be weak, waiting for him to approach. Otherwise, against this terrifying existence with a difference of 7 small realms, his chances of winning would be extremely slim. After receiving orders, the surrounding deacons quickly surrounded the weak Zhang Ruochen. Elderly was examining Murong boy's injuries and had no intention of taking action against Zhang Ruochen. Murong Yunxiao, who was standing beside him, saw this and angrily rebuked, "He's even weaker now. Hurry up." Chapter 9. Low Status and How to Revenge. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A fierce light flashed in the eyes of those deacons, wielding weapons and quickly charging towards Zhang Ruochen. Zhang Ruochen's gaze was cold, and he released his killing intent, carrying Murong Shui behind him. "Madam, I'll take you out." He punched and first smashed Murong Yunxiao's head, which was lying paralyzed on the chair, before starting to deal with the rushing deacons. These deacons are all part of the gathering spirit realm. Zhang Ruochen is the first god of war in the Great Qin Dynasty, who once fought on the battlefield. Faced with such a small scene, he did not panic at all. After receiving the massive spiritual power supplement of eternal devotion technique, it feels like a god of killing, unparalleled in all directions. As long as there is no one from his 4 or 5 small realms at a high place to take action, he is confident that he can safely leave on behalf of Murong Shui. As Zhang Ruochen rushed towards the door, Murong Shui weakly said, "Husband, my mother is still imprisoned in the Murong family. I can't leave like this. You go quickly and leave me alone." Zhang Ruochen suddenly realized that no wonder she didn't leave with her, it turned out to be because of her mother. After kicking the 2 rushing deacons away, he said in a deep voice, "Madam, I will find a way to solve your mother's problem. Let's leave now." Murong Shui was a bit anxious and said, "But you may not be able to escape with me. The members of the family will soon come over." Zhang Ruochen already had several wounds on his body, and even with dozens of people surrounding him, he couldn't attack and avoid everyone. "Can we kill it or not? We'll only know after trying." Zhang Ruochen did not let go of Murong Shui, and rushed all the way to the entrance of the law enforcement hall. Rampage. The law enforcement hall is in chaos, and their crimes should be punished. A roar came from afar, followed by a figure soaring into the air. Being able to achieve short distance flying in the air may have already reached the great perfection of condensing pills. Such opponents have no chance of winning even if Zhang Ruochen masters the secret techniques. At this moment, a piece of training shot out of the person's hand and suddenly hit Zhang Ruochen. Zhang Ruochen quickly resisted, but the condensed spiritual shield was instantly shattered, and he also flew out upside down. During the process, he quickly pulled Murong Shui back from behind and held her in his arms. With a loud bang, he fell heavily to the ground, vomited a few mouthfuls of blood, and his breath quickly faded. Murong Shui in her arms was also injured by the shock, and the corners of her mouth were also bleeding. The middle-aged man landed and walked steadily towards Zhang Ruochen, his gaze sharp and sharp, as if he could see through all obstacles to see his own goal in his heart. His eyes were filled with desire and determination, and his pursuit of power and success was like a burning flame. There are only 4 words to summarize: ambitious. Farewell to the master. Farewell to the master. The deacons who could still stand up all stood up to pay their respects. This person was the head of the Murong family and the second uncle of Murong Shui, Murong Bowen. He stared coldly at Zhang Ruochen and Murong Shui. "Murong Shui, then you have disappointed third uncle too much. You led the criminal's husband to cause a big trouble in the law enforcement hall. This is unprecedented in the Morong family. Even if you are the eldest brother's child, I have to. Third uncle is really heartbroken. Humph. Zhang Ruochen snorted coldly, his clothes stained red with blood, like a blooming flower on the battlefield, beautiful and magnificent. However, he showed no signs of yielding at all. Speaking so grandly, you still want to get rid of my wife. Morong Bowen's gaze instantly turned cold, like a pool of ice, cold and piercing. You are the criminal. I underestimated you before and let you make such a big mess. I must kill you today. The killing intent in his eyes became even colder. If Zhang Ruochen hadn't come, his plan to deal with Morong Shui would have been very simple and smooth, and it was impossible for so many things to happen. Morong Shui stood in front of Zhang Ruochen, her eyes full of determination and courage, as if telling everyone that she would spare no effort to protect her lover. Uncle San, if you want to kill him, then kill me first. Morong Bowen sneered, you all have to die. It doesn't make sense who comes first. He is now carefree. It can be said to the public that Zhang Ruochen and Morong Shui have seriously injured their fellow family members and even caused a scene in the law enforcement court. This charge is enough to put them to death. Zhang Ruochen pulled Morong Shui aside and stood up with a strong support. He complained incessantly in his heart, and indeed he couldn't pin his hope on others. Although the letter he sent to Wanyao Pavilion has already been delivered, no one has arrived yet, and I don't know if he will help with this. He can only procrastinate as much as possible now, waiting for the people from Wanyao Pavilion to come. With the help of those people, he will definitely be able to leave the Morong family. Morong Bowen felt a bit embarrassed when he saw Zhang Ruochen still standing up. Just in the gathering spirit realm, a criminal sent by the court was able to withstand my blow without dying. It seems that I underestimated you before, a useless person. Zhang Ruochen's gaze was cold and he said, Hee, Morong Bowen, if I don't die today, I will definitely return the humiliation I have suffered 100 times and 1,000 times the next day. Morong Bowen looked at Zhang Ruochen disdainfully, his eyes full of contempt. You, a powerless criminal, even if given another 100 years, you will still be a low-level ant, and you are delusional about shaking the huge Morong family, delusional. Those deacons also looked contemptuous upon hearing these words. A criminal sent by the court, the husband of the ugliest woman in Black Cloud City, a character like an ant. With which identity can they seek revenge against the Morong family? Not to mention revenge, we can't survive today. Zhang Ruochen suddenly burst out laughing in the face of these people's ridicule. Morong Shui looked at her husband with concern, and at that moment, she also felt that her husband was in a state of anger and mental disorder. Upon seeing this, Morong Bowen said coldly, I don't want to talk nonsense to you anymore. Let's join a good family in the next life. As he spoke, he was about to take action, with a violent spiritual energy gathering in his palm. Stop it. Lu Qinghe from Wanyao Pavilion is here, stop it for me. From afar came a pleasant sound like a silver bell, but the content made Morong Bowen, the head of the Morong family, shudder in his heart. If the Morong family is a behemoth to Zhang Ruochen, then the Wanyao Pavilion is also a behemoth to the Morong family. Which of the 4 major families in Black Cloud City dares to offend the Wanyao Pavilion, even giving up 6 spots in the Xianhan secret realm? Just, handle Morong Shui and her useless husband on your own, what will Wanyao Gu add to it? As he was puzzled, Lu Qinghe and Jiang Yaoling had already landed in front of Zhang Ruochen and Morong Shui on a flying magic weapon. Jiang Yaoling saw Zhang Ruochen and Morong Shui who were seriously injured and quickly took the pill for them to take. This scene made Morong Bowen even more puzzled. Judging from this posture, he even wanted to protect Zhang Ruochen and Morong Shui. Although he fears the Wanyao Pavilion, he cannot be too flattery in front of everyone's eyes. Otherwise, where is the authority of his own family leader? He gazed at Lu Qinghe with a calm face and said, I don't know why Lord Lu is here. What can I do for you? Lu Qinghe glanced at Zhang Ruochen and then at Jiang Yaoling, sighing helplessly before turning his gaze back to Morong Boan. Zhang Ruochen is from my Wanyao pavilion, you can't touch him. Chapter 10. If anyone refuses, kill them directly. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The people of the Morong family all have strange expressions. Just now, the head of the family said that Zhang Ruochen has no authority or power. As a result, Zhang Ruochen suddenly became a member of the Wanyao pavilion. Not only that, but his identity also seems to be crucial in the Wanyao pavilion. Even the pavilion master has come to give him a platform. That's the Wanyao pavilion, even the Morong family has to look up to. Shangguan Bowen's gaze flickered, and the situation became increasingly complex. Zhang Ruochen surprisingly became a member of the Wanyao pavilion. What exactly is going on? He gazed at Lu Qinghe, his eyebrows furrowed and his face full of displeasure. Master Lu, Zhang Ruochen is a court prisoner who was escorted and exiled to Black Cloud City. Are you sure this is from your Wanyao pavilion? He was unwilling and only needed the last step to put Morong Shui and Zhang Ruochen to death. Lu Qinghe's eyebrows and eyes sank, and Morong Bowen's hair stood on end in an instant, his body stiff and unable to move at all. He glanced left and right in his spare time, as if he was the only one intimidated by this powerful pressure. It's over. This kind of strength can only be achieved in the cultivation of gods or higher-level divine powers after the condensation of pills. In this moment, countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Do you give up? Not willing to accept it. In the end, he determined one thing. Even if Zhang Ruochen had some involvement with Wanyao Pavilion, he would never go too deep. Perhaps another way could be used to prevent Wanyao Pavilion from interfering in this matter. Master Lu, these two people are from our Morong family and belong to the family business. What would it be like for outsiders to interfere? The Xianhan secret realm is about to open. Our Morong family is willing to take out 4 more from their own quota and give them to the Wanyao Pavilion as compensation for letting the Lu Pavilion Lord go for free today. How about that? Lu Qinghe narrowed his eyes slightly. It took a lot of effort to allocate 6 spots from the 4 major families in the Black Cloud layer in the Wanyao Pavilion. I didn't expect the Morong family to be so happy this time, willing to pay 4 spots in exchange for the opportunity to kill Zhang Ruochen and Morong Shui. And Zhang Ruochen's strength is not even comparable to the condensing pill realm, which is of little value to Wanyao Pavilion. To be honest, he was a bit tempted. However, he did not immediately agree, but instead turned his gaze to Jiang Yaoling, waiting for her to speak. As long as this young lady is in the Wanyao Gu, then she will always be the one who talks after taking the pill. Zhang Ruochen's injury recovered very quickly. At this point, he had regained his essence, energy, and spirit, and the blood from the wound had basically stopped. Jiang Yaoling was by his side and saw that he had recovered a bit. He smiled and said, "Senior, you have hidden yourself quite deeply. If it weren't for you self-exposing your identity, Wanyao Pavilion might not have been able to find your identity." There is a hint of mockery in this statement, but it tends to be more like a joke. Zhang Ruochen smiled awkwardly. When going out, is the identity given by oneself? Jiang Yaoling couldn't help but cry and laugh. You might find a reason, why did you give yourself the identity to go out? But this time you asked me to come and rescue you, and we haven't agreed on the terms yet. Zhang Ruochen gently lifted Morong Shui and then said calmly, "What can I give you?" Miss Yaoling should be clear about it. Jiang Yaoling's face changed slightly and she said angrily, "Okay, good, cunning fox. The meridian operation method you gave me last time was indeed problematic, right? No wonder there is always a sense of obstruction when practicing." Lu Qinghe looked at Zhang Ruochen in shock, his gaze slightly cold. He dared to plan against Jiang Yaoling. This kid doesn't want to live anymore. Morong Bowen and a group of Morong family deacons sneered in their hearts when they saw this. It turns out that Zhang Ruochen is not looking for a helper, but for a dying king of hell. They all had a cold expression on their faces, staring fixedly at Zhang Ruochen and Murong Shui, hoping to see their tragic fate. Zhang Ruochen calmly explained, "No, there is no problem with the route of meridians. It's okay to practice like this now, but I have a better plan that can double your cultivation speed." Jiang Yaoling was originally a bit angry, but upon hearing that he was not lying to himself and there was a way to double his cultivation speed, he immediately changed his smiling face. "Not bad, not bad. I already know that the senior is reliable. I will hand over the route of the meridians and handle this matter for you, Mississippi." Zhang Ruochen stared at Jiang Yaoling's graceful body a few times before slowly speaking up. When Xiao Shang returns, he passes through Deshu Acupoint, enters Qingguang, passes through Qingming, and then connects to the previous route. Jiang Yaoling couldn't wait to try, but the deacons of the Murong family nearby sneered. "Even if it's just a matter of gathering spirits, how can it teach people how to cultivate? Isn't this miss from the 10,000 Medicine Pavilion a fool?" She would believe Zhang Ruochen's words. This Wan Yao Gu is probably also fooled by this useless person. Their voices were quiet, but there was still some dialogue coming out. Lu Qinghe did not speak at this moment because he had seen Zhang Ruochen guide Jiang Yaoling's process last time. Murong Bowen did not stop the deacons, but instead sneered, "Changing just a few acupoints to double the cultivation speed is really a pipe dream." At this moment, a strong spiritual energy suddenly gathered around Jiang Yaoling's body, and visible to the naked eye, those spiritual powers were quickly absorbed and refined by her. At the same time, her realm has also been elevated from the first level of entering the condensed pill realm to the second level. Jiang Yaoling opened her eyes, and a hint of brilliance flashed in them. "It's really great, it's more than doubled." The deacons of the Murong family all opened their mouths wide. How could Zhang Ruochen, who is in the realm of gathering spirits, really guide people in cultivation? The key is that changing a few meridian acupoints can double a person's cultivation speed. Is this really something that useless Sun.in.law can do? Murong Bowen couldn't help but feel a burning expression on his face. After all, he just mocked Zhang Ruochen for saying that changing a few acupoints could improve his cultivation speed. It was a pipe dream, but who knew that the sudden slap on his face came? As the head of the Murong family, he has lost face this time. Zhang Ruochen didn't glance at those people, just kept staring at Jiang Yaoling in front of him. Miss Yaoling probably won't break her promise, will she? Jiang Yaoling let out a moan and turned to Lu Qinghe, saying, "Master Lu, if anyone in the Murong family dares not comply, they can directly use your cultivation in the divine realm to kill them." Lu Qinghe bowed and said, "Yes, miss." Murong Bowen's pupils shrank slightly, and Lu Qinghe was actually a cultivator in the divine realm. The other members of the Murong family were also full of disbelief. A spiritual realm cultivator was enough to crush the entire Murong family. Lu Qinghe's gaze fell on Murong Bowen and he smiled, "You should have heard what my young lady said. We'll protect Zhang Ruochen and Murong Shui." Jiang Yaoling ignored the Murong family's reaction and summoned the flying magic weapon. This is a disc-shaped magic weapon, seemingly a jade Jew. Zhang Ruochen picked up the weak Murong Shui and stepped on it. Under the urging of Jiang Yaoling, the flying magic weapon was activated and he swaggered away from the Murong family.